Another type of source that you will often locate in the databases are books. And there are two different approaches to citing a book. You can cite the whole book, or you can cite a part of the book, either a chapter or a work in an edited collection. Now, very rarely will you need to cite a whole book unless you are writing about a whole novel, for example, or unless you read a whole book and that's the basis of the research. More often, you will be citing a part of that book, a chapter, a story, an article, whatever it might be. So I have two examples pulled up here, and these are going to appear very similar when you are looking at the surface level. However, you would cite these quite differently because they are different types of sources. So this source on the left, the book is called American War Stories, Veteran Writers, and the Politics of Memoir. And then the author is listed up here. It's Myra Mendable, also listed here. With books and PDF copies, the great thing is that you likely have a title page where you can find that information. You can also find the publisher. This is University of Massachusetts Press. You can find the copyright date. You can find all of that information in the first couple pages of the book. Now, if I was using this in research, I would most likely be citing just one or two of these chapters. So let's say I was citing this first chapter, Protesters, Patriots, and Culture. If I wanted to create a citation for this, I would cite this as my source title. This would be the part that goes in quotation marks. Protesters, Patriots, and Cultural Warriors, American Politics and the Citizen Soldier. This would be my quotation marks portion. And then my container title in italics would be the book, American War Stories, Veteran Writers, etc., etc. Then I would include the publisher from that title page. I would include the date, and I would include the page numbers of the chapter that I am using. So in this case, that would be 26 to 58. And so that's how I would find the information for that. And then I would just cite it as a book chapter. Pretty straightforward. However, a book like this one on the right, you would actually need to include a completely additional part of that citation. So if I go to the title page of this book, I have the container title. I also have a contributor. However, notice that this one is marked an editor. This book is what's called an edited collection or an anthology. So the difference between these two books that are very similar is that this book on the left is written by Myra Mendable, and she wrote everything in that book. There's no other author. Everything in it is authored by her. So there's only one contributor for us to include. This is an edited collection, so there are a number of pieces and specific source articles in this container that Robert Talley, the editor, has collected together into a book. And in cases like that, you have to cite both the author and the editor. So if I was citing something out of this book, let's say I was citing this chapter here. Notice that this chapter has a different author, Peter Fries. Now, if I'm using this chapter, this critical reading in research, I would cite this as the source title. So Peter Fries would be my author. This would be my source title in italics. Then my container would be the book, Kurt Vonnegut, Critical Insights. And then I would follow that with my other contributors, edited by Robert Talley. And then I would need to include, just like with the other one, the publisher, the year, and the page numbers of this article that I found. So when you're navigating books, you want to pay attention to whether or not you need an editor, because when you go to your generator tool, you are going to have book and book chapter. And when you select book chapter, because you're setting a part of that book, you are going to need to know whether you have an editor or not, because you would have to add that manually.